Good evening, and thank you for coming this evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Town Council to order for February 28th. If you would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag,
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Chairman Finley Rothaus and Councilor Tom Thornton are both excused for this evening, out of town or on business. So I will be filling in. We'll see how that works out. Yeah, once or twice, but it's been a while.
You've done this
so.
rodeo before.
By way of announcements, I have a page and a half to read, so please bear with me. The filing period for town offices to be elected at town meeting ends on Friday, March 1, 2019 at 5 p.m. That's tomorrow. Open positions, there's 2 for 3 years for town councilor, ethics committee 2 for 3 years, library trustee 1 for 3 years, and trustee of the trust funds 1 for 3 years. So as a final reminder, tomorrow at 5 o'clock is the last time to sign up to get your name on the ballot at the town hall, town clerk's office. The town's deliberative session will take place at the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School, JMUS, in the all-purpose room Wednesday, March 13, 2019 at 7 p.m. The snow date is March 14th at the same time and place. The Merrimack School District's deliberative session will take place at the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School, JMUS, in the all-purpose room on Tuesday, March 5th, 2019 at 7 p.m. Their snow date is March 7th at the same time and place. MVD's annual meeting will take place at the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School. This is sounding like a broken record. JMUS in the all-purpose room on Tuesday, March 26, 2019 at 7 p.m. That is their one meeting because it's not a ballot session. So all of their activities will go on at that meeting. Other meetings coming up, the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Maximum Contaminant Levels, MCLs, for PFC's public hearing session. New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, NHDES, public hearing session will be held at the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School, JMUS, in the all-purpose room on Monday, March 4th, 2019, from 5:30 to 9 p.m. That's this coming Monday. Upcoming town council meetings, Wednesday, March 13th, 2019, directly following the deliberative session at the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School, JMUS, in the all-purpose room. This is a special meeting that the council gets together to discuss anything that happened during the deliberative session. Thursday, March 14th at 7 p.m. in the Matthew Thornton Room is a regular meeting, and Thursday, March 28th at 7 p.m. in the Matthew Thornton Room is a regular meeting of the town council. Eileen, did you have anything?
Nope, I gave them all to you.
Okay. Scratch that one then. Highway garage, Paul, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just real quick. If you drive by the highway garage, the old highway garage has been being re-sided to match the new facility. And I just wanted a couple things. We're getting ready with spring around the corner to look at naming the sign. And I know we have a naming convention in this town, so just to think about it with the town council, if they would just want to call it the Merrimack Highway Garage Facility or some other name, to think about that. And the second thing is, in May, towards the end of May, we will be holding an open house for the taxpayers of Merrimack to come in and look at the new facility and the remodeled old facility so they can see what their tax dollars paid for. So that will be towards the end of May. Once we get that nailed down by next meeting, I'll have those dates. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Yes.
I just want to, we just had a Parks and Rec Committee meeting last week, and one of the things we're trying to push is they've have a survey out now. They're asking residents in town to, if they'd fill out this survey, it asks about 8 questions, and it's trying to give some guidance to the Parks and Rec Committee on where the folks in town think they should go as far as activities and so forth. And you can access this survey either on the Parks and Rec Department website their Facebook page, the Friends of the Merrimack Dog Park also have it as a link. So we'd ask people to get out there and fill it out and kind of give everybody some guidance on that committee on where to kind of steer things as it gets to the council. So, thank you.
Where is that? On the website?
Yeah, it's on the Parks and Rec website, again, on the Parks and Rec Facebook page, and any of their social media, and also on the Friends of the Merrimack Dog Park. They've posted a link.
Okay. Is there any other announcements? Yes, Paul?
And if people are not computer literate, they can come to Town Hall, and it's at the, as you go in towards the town clerk, tax collector, there's surveys there for people to fill out as well.
Oh, great. We good? We're good. Comments from the press and public? Anybody wish to comment to the town council at this time? Please either come to the table and have a seat or stand up at the mic, whichever makes you comfortable.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, my name is Connie Willett, and I live at 45 Island Drive, right across the street from King Cone. So I had put in a request into the changing or doing something for the safety of coming in from the south over here going towards Nashua, not the other way. There's two exits that we could take to come out. But the one is the right across from Monroe is where the traffic is coming, and we're trying to go out in. The only way that we would avoid any of that would be to go right up to Dunkin' Donut and making a U-E. Well, it's our exit too to get in there. Yes, I know that we've had something showing that we can go in, but if there's snow or it's foggy or whatever, nobody from the traffic can see us trying to come in. So normally when I try to turn in, I'll put in my hazardous light to showing I'm going in there. But I'll tell you, one night I almost had somebody coming in head on to me. So after that, I said, I'm going in to put a complaint. It's our safety. We had a lot of little dead squirrels, and I don't want to be the next one. So that's my concern. If a stop sign is good, we know we can yield. We know we are stopping. Coming out, it's the coming in for the other traffic coming straight from Route 3 that they're going, and they're having their leeway. So I can come out, like I said tonight, when I want to try it just to see when it, before it came here, is coming out across from King Cone. Very easy to come out. It's hard to come out to go back to work to Nashua. We're in a little tunnel, I guess, and it's a safety that I want. It's not just a stop sign.
Is that the sign?
That's the one that we're talking
Okay.
about.
That's it.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Tom, just one thing. Ma'am?
Just a minute.
Ms. Willett?
Ms.
Ms.
Willett? Excuse me, I'm sorry, Town Councilor
I just,
Albert had a question.
If you want to, at some point, have you reached out to the Highway Safety Committee? The Town Highway Safety Committee? The chief chairs it. I believe, who's on it? For Finley's on?
I
Finley's on.
believe that's our
Rockhouse is
item
on
number
it.
2 for discussion
And they're a great
tonight.
starting point to address any of the traffic control stuff. So, and the chief's here, so you may want to just talk to her, but they are a great reference to get started on. They work on a lot of the, they work with the DPW and everything, and they help, some of these traffic control issues. So it's a great point. I know what you're talking about there, so maybe if you chat with them and maybe send them a letter, and if any of your neighbors are concerned, have them express their concerns as well.
That's what I'm here representing everybody.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you.
You do know, I believe it's already on the item for number
Right.
2.
It's item number 2 on the
I
agenda.
saw that. I didn't know
Okay.
it was the same.
That's
exact-
what I was trying to figure
So
out.
same
as well.
person.
So you know, she doesn't hear me.
You can't-
Okay. The complaint or concern is actually being discussed under the new business number 2. So basically, that's testimony in support of. Okay.
Yep.
Margaret O'Neill, 60 Island Drive, Merrimack. I have used that intersection for 40 years now. Norma French, who I'm sure most of you know, actually got us a left turn lane there to come in from the north and going south on DW Drive. The problem that I see in your proposal here, it shows a stop sign at the north end of DW Drive. That's not where the issue is. The issue is at the crossover. The people from the condominiums, number one, don't use their stop signs, so they rush across. and people who are coming from Island Drive going north to make a left-hand turn and go south on DW Highway are forced to either slam on their brakes. There's been several accidents there. That's where the real issue is, plus the people who are skirting DW Highway during rush hour and going down up DW Drive and then cutting back into the traffic flow. There's no sense in putting a stop sign at the north end of DW Drive. It would be better to put it either before Island Drive or before the condominiums, because that's where the issue occurs, is that there have been several accidents. One of my neighbors got into an accident where somebody did not yield, and so they couldn't cross. And that small, when they even put in that, it was interesting. But when they put that cutover in there, there's not room for two cars. So now you have buses that go through there, you have cars that are turning in there instead of coming up DW Drive. And that's the real issue, is that. It needs to be widened. It also needs a yellow line going all the way up DW Drive, because people don't understand that's a two-way street there. You see a sign when you go north on DW Drive, but you don't see it if you come in at the left turn lane that Norma so kindly got us so that we could turn into DW Drive and then Island Drive. So this diagram that you have here is incorrect when you get to this item. I think this one here shows a stop sign way at the north end. That yield sign is just fine. It's been there for 40 years. It's working fine. We can merge onto that roadway. The problem is back down further across from the condominiums. And we need more visibility with that stop sign. We also need the condominium association to actually enforce the law there, or enforce their own rules, and the town to enforce it. Because I've called several times when people just cut right in front of me. Oh, I didn't even see that stop sign. And it's like, please, there's a stop sign there. It's an intersection. You need to obey the law there. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to address the council during the public comment session? Seeing none, we'll close down the public comments and move on to recognitions, resignations, and retirements. We have one today. Town Council presented an award to Master Patrolman Jim Sullivan in recognition of his resignation after almost 14 years of full-time service with the Town of Merrimack Police Department. He'll be awarded with a plaque. Jim resigned effective on January 29th of 2019. So, Chief, you gonna?
He looks more relaxed already.
Oh, that was
I've always wanted to drop the mic. It's not the way I thought, though. Come here, Jim. Don't be so far away.
He's afraid of you now.
He is afraid now that I throw things. Thank you very much, Eileen, Paul, members of the council, for giving us a couple minutes tonight to honor Jim Sullivan. Jim came to us part-time in actually 2000, Jim. I can't believe it was 19 years ago. Time is flying by. In 2000, he came to us as a part-time officer from Daniel Webster College, where he was doing security. Immediately we knew that Jim was the right fit for us. He already had that community policing base being at the college, and it was a seamless transition. Well, we thought it was seamless. I don't know how you felt. But it was a seamless transition into our department. In 2005, Jim became a full-time police officer, and his storied career started then. We've been very lucky to have Jim with us for the last 19 years. Jim has done a myriad of things. You've been in patrol, been in detectives. We actually work together in detectives. He's been involved in many big cases. He was an integral part of solving a bank robbery where the gentleman in Milford. Was a very interesting case that we worked, and we'll leave it at that. But we got a conviction on it, and that was the best part. Jim has, he's just done so many great things for us. He has been assigned up to the academy, most recently as a cadre, and what that is, for those of you who don't know, is somebody who mentors the new officers coming in. And we also knew that that would be a great fit for Jim, because he, for so long now, has been a field training officer for us. And when you're a field training officer, we really rely on the people to mentor the new officers and to help to integrate them into our community policing philosophy and our culture. And Jim was the perfect person for that. We really relied on Jim for a lot of stuff, including that. You know, there was one time that Jim, through no fault of his own, had an extremely close call. And it was at that moment that I realized, Jim, that we really do have to take life every moment, because everything can change in a split second. And you and I know what I'm talking about, and you know, I appreciate that you stuck through with us. And Jim has gone now to something that's a better fit for him now in his life. And although we are sad that he's left us, we're happy that you're continuing on in police work, because you do have so much to offer everyone who comes into this profession. And it's a difficult one, but you make it just a little bit easier. So thank you for everything you've done for us. We appreciate you beyond words, and we already miss you. So anytime you want to come back, I promise not to throw the mic back at you. You'll always be a part of our family, so thanks, Jim.
I certainly can't follow up very much as well as you did, but just wanted to take the time to thank the town for the opportunity to increase my experience through police work, and especially to all the people that I've worked with over the years. There's my field training officer, Matt Tarleton. I learned it all from him, and I appreciate everything that you've done for me. It's really been a great time working with you. A lot of good laughs, a lot of strange experiences, and we'll talk about that some other time. But again, thank you very much, and I'm very honored.
So Jim, it's my privilege to be able to present this plaque to you, presented to Master Patrolman James Sullivan in recognition of the loyal and dedicated full-time service which you have contributed for nearly 14 years to the Town of Merrimack Police Department. Your dedication and devotion to duty has been a tremendous asset to the Town of Merrimack. We wish to extend to you our sincere appreciation for your outstanding performance of duty February 5th, 2005, January 29th of 2019. Thank you very much. With all of us? With or without the mic?
Do you want me to throw the mic away?
Thanks, Jim.
Obstacle course here. Watch out for the obstacle course. Congratulations, stay healthy and enjoy your...
I just want to chime in real fast and thank Jim for his service. I had the opportunity and the privilege of working with Jim for many years, and I know Jim's his ability. He was a master patrolman on many occasions for our department, and his level-headedness, his quick wit, his great demeanor, and his professionalism were an asset to the police department. We're going to miss Jim, but I'm happy for him, and I wish him luck.
Very good. Thank you very much, Jim. Okay, moving along. We're all set. Appointments. We're expecting the trustees of the trust funds to update us and review. The town council to be presented with the details of the performance update of the trustee of the trust funds. Chris Christensen, I think.
Yeah, he's coming up.
And Bill Wilkes.
Just to let you
Welcome.
to sign.
Okay.
Gonna pass it down to Bill Boyd.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Chris Christensen. To my right is Bill Wilkes. And not able to be here tonight is our third trustee of trust funds, which is Jack Balcom. Thank you. I'm sorry, our third, which is Jack Balcom. Jack is traveling this week, school vacation. There are 3 trustees, as you can see by those names, and we are elected for 3-year terms on an alternating basis. I'm the one that's, whose term is expiring this coming April election. So, what do? We manage money that the town owns. We have a website page or a page on the town website that reports on all of the funds we hold, annual reports, minutes, agendas, some of the RSAs that we are guided by. Our investment policy is there, which we do annually. So it's pretty simple to follow. I think that's about it. Each year, our books are audited along with the town's audit, and our reports, copies of our reports go to you and to the Department of Revenue Administration and to the Attorney General. We also are participating in the audits of the school board, or school district, excuse me, and the MVD, because we also manage their capital reserve funds. And some of the common funds that we have also relate to the school. So we have 2 types of funds. Expendable, capital reserve funds we can expend, or you can expend the whole thing, although we have a responsibility to be sure that you're spending it for the purpose to which it was intended under the warrant article that established the capital reserve fund. So we do get copies of invoices and the rest of it. So if you say we're going to spend $250,000 on that, on XYZ, we want to see receipts and invoices for at least that $250,000. The reason for that is so that you don't say, well, we're going to spend $250, and then you spend $220 and put $30,000 into the general fund. It doesn't work that way. We're supposed to be a buffer for that. For that reason, trustees cannot be town council, we cannot be town treasurer, we cannot be school board members, and we cannot be school district treasurer, nor can any of you be trustees at the same time. The other funds we have are non-expendable, and we invest these in common for investment purposes. Allows us a better diversity of our portfolio. And right now we have about $7.3 million in those funds. Those are things that have been given to us over the years for perpetual care for cemeteries, bequests for the school, for the fire department, for the library, a variety of scholarships. We have some scholarship funds. Thank you. Those types of things. So the body, the corpus of the fund is invested, and the income goes into a different side of the ledger, if you will, and then we can expend the income only. So when you take the spreadsheet, there's kind of a big, heavy black line down the middle, and the money doesn't cross back from the income side. It doesn't cross over in the other direction either. So what else do we have here?
Mention how much we have in the common funds, maybe?
7.3 million. Just a little bit of history. In 2008, in the common funds, we had about $3.2 million. And by 2016, it was 6.25 million. Now, that was kind of a sluggish period in the economy, but we invested very defensively, and because we were investing in stocks that had good, strong dividends, utilities, for example, everybody else wanted those too, because you couldn't get interest in income anyplace else. And so our portfolio grew because of the interest in those types of stocks was strong. In 2016, we started transitioning to a more growth-oriented portfolio, and the 6.25 million is now about 7.1 million. So we've done very well. If you average that first 8 years, it's about 8%, which is about what the S&P 500 did. However, the S&P 500 is something that is fully invested, whereas we have to hold back certain amounts of cash, which is really uninvested. So the numbers have to be juggled a little bit if you want to try and get really finessed with that. We have provided you with a list of the common funds, or the perpetual funds, and also with the, there's 22 different capital reserve funds. And just by way of comparison, the town has a little over 7 million in capital reserve funds. The MVD has about 5.5 million, and the school district has about 600,000. So the town uses capital reserve fund to good advantage to plan for things in advance and smooth out the tax rate so we don't have huge ups and downs in the taxes. Maybe Bill wants to read a few of the types of things that are in the different funds, just to give you some examples.
You mean this type of stuff?
Yeah.
Communications equipment, computer equipment, DW highway improvements, fire equipment, fire station improvements, highway equipment, milfoil, milfoil remediation, I guess, or whatever.
Right.
Playground equipment, et cetera, road improvements, salt shed, sewer extensions, which we've had a few of those recently, sewer improvements, culvert improvements, that sort of thing.
And I guess with that, we're open to questions.
Okay. Are there any questions for the trustees of the trust funds? Bill?
More of a comment, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. And Chris, Bill, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for the work that you do managing this, because it can be very difficult managing this large sum of money without having, obviously, we probably have a couple of advisors that are helping you out, but like you illustrated in page 2 of your narrative, and you illustrated today, going from 2008 at 3.2 million, 11 years later to 7.1 million, I'm sorry, that's really impressive. And the stock market hasn't exactly been, a gradual uphill line. It's had its peaks, it's had its valleys throughout the entire time. So I really think you and Jack, both of you and Jack, really deserve to be commended for your stewardship of these funds over the last couple of years. And the fact that this trust fund is able to provide and be able to give back to certain things going on in the community makes it even more the better. So I do want to say thank you, because these funds are in a good position, and it's because of your leadership, it's because of your financial prowess, and it's because of, ultimately, my favorite word, your stewardship. So thank you very much for what you've done. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will say that during the period 2008 to 2016, as we mentioned, kind of a sluggish economy, and we managed the funds ourselves pretty much. But as we got to a larger volume and reoriented more towards a growth economy, we also asked Cambridge Trust to do some of the management. And we went through a process. We sent out an RFP, and about 14 or 15 banks and wealth management companies and so forth responded. We culled it down to 3. We held interviews, and they came out with the best deal for us, or for the town. So they get a lot of the credit. We meet with them a couple of times a year at least, and we're back and forth on the phone and emails frequently. But they have a team with a bond specialist and an equity specialist and a couple of other people who come to our meetings, and we work things out very easily.
Cambridge Trust is personally known to me. They're very reputable, so Good for you. Thank you.
Peter and then Eileen.
Bill, Chris, I just want to say, I want to reiterate what Bill said is thank you, and I want to thank Jack too. This is a very important responsibility, and you gentlemen have done a fantastic job. And just seeing the growth in the last 10 years or so is incredible. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eileen?
I don't want to put you on the spot here because you probably don't have all your documents on these, and I probably should have called you, but I'm just curious what some of these, it looks like a lot of the income balances are just sitting there. So you have 2.3, almost $2.4 million in income on these. Are some of these funds so limited in what can be spent out of them that that they're just continuing to accumulate? So let me just give you an example. So Watkins has $672,000 in income, which from what I understand from you is that part's expendable. So I'm just kind of wondering why there are such large balances in the income part.
Go ahead.
I think the simple, quick answer is that people have to request, use of these funds, and we have to, we try to manage that so that, people just don't spend it on anything. They spend it on something that's worthy. So sometimes people don't come to us. They don't say, hey, what's available and, what could be spent. And we don't actually go out there and wave a flag or anything and say, hey, you have all this money, why don't you spend it? Because we try to be conservative and prudent and make sure that people are spending it in the right places.
Let me suggest one other thing from a more historic point of view. The Watkins Fund is slated to be expended for school purposes. Many years ago, when the income was a lot less, the school district and the trustees gave the school district the income at the end of the year in June. It was about $30,000. But because it was the end of the year in June, it had to go into surplus, which then went back to the town to affect or have an impact on the tax rate. It wasn't doing anything for the students. So we agreed with the school board to hold some of those funds until they requested. Now, over the last 3 years, we've rebuilt 3 elementary school libraries and the J. Muse school library, and put in electronics and new furniture and new carpet, and, well, I guess the school paid for the carpet.
It's like $100,000 per library project, round number.
The other thing that happens, because we're holding that money on the income side, instead of just collecting interest, it's reinvested in equities. So you're seeing the effect of some growth there as well, which wouldn't occur if we were just giving out the tiny amounts every year and just letting it whistle away.
Nancy?
To bandwagon off that, where would we find the criteria for these various funds? For, what is it about?
They all have a specific,
And where would we find that information?
we can, if somebody would request to us, we could probably do our homework and get that to you.
There aren't any specifically for the town. There is the Shed Harris Fund, which is specific for fire protection in the village of Reed's Ferry.
That's the one we're talking about with the North Fire
And we've been
Station.
talking with that, and we're talking to Chief Currier, and Paul's been involved in those discussions. I can give you a long history of them.
No. But, so if we requested a quick summary, I'm talking, like 30 words. This was designed, this was set up, blah, blah. Would that be burdensome for you to do?
No. Most of them we can tell you right now.
I would just
as we
need,
just-
you-
I
as we
would just
did
need,
with
I would
Shed
just
Harris-
need a
Shed
30.
Harris Fund.
Could I officially request that? And literally, just take these, short paragraph.
We could put like.
And
right
if I
next to
want
it,
more
just a
information, I'll
comment
contact you.
That's, yeah.
Yeah,
Just, this is, you have it when it was established, know that, but the purpose of this fund was established for blah, blah, blah. That's all I
we
need.
used to have that on the reports. If you go back to some old reports, it's there. But the new reports, which is what you're looking at,
Right.
the DRA mandated in their software that we use these titles instead of explanatory stuff. So there's a limited number of purpose statements we can make now.
Well, I'd just like to request and send it, have it,
But you want all of them, not just the towns, right?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
And could you give that information to Eileen, and she can distribute it?
Sure.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Just one
Yeah,
thing.
that, yeah.
We can help with that too, because I think Tom, our treasurer, has that information, so,
He's
we'll,
great too.
yeah, what we'll
He's very
do is, Tom can put it together, and then you guys can just check it over. So we don't want to give you any more work. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen.
Barbara? Got
It's
it.
jumping around back here. A question for you. Is there a certain percentage of the fund that has to be kept liquid in case you do get a request in? Or is it easily liquidated in order to meet a particular need or request?
We have to keep it liquid. If we know something's on the horizon, we have to keep it liquid.
So you have to
One of the-
make sure those funds are
And
available as
one of
well.
the things that we try to do pretty aggressively with the capital reserve funds is we want to, we have limitations as to what we can invest that money in. And we try to ladder things, with different government securities and CDs and so forth in order to maximize the return for the town, but also have the funds available when they're needed. So we watch that pretty closely.
Very good. Any other questions? Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in. We look forward to
you.
getting that report, and appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have no public hearings tonight. Brings us to legislative updates from state reps. Can you turn the mic back on? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Stack, and happy to be here this evening to report on the legislative updates. We've had a very, very, very busy 2 days. I'm not going to go through everything we've done. I'm just going to pick a few, and then Wendy will tell you about a few also. House Bill 726FN, which is relative to the secure psychiatric unit, got moved forward. Over 3 decades, the state of New Hampshire has been transferring civilly committed patients whose mental illness is so severe that they are a threat to themselves and others from the state hospital and accredited mental health hospital to the state prisons in the secure psychiatric unit. As a fully accredited facility, they're commingled with sentenced prisoners. The Legislative Committee for the past 2 decades has recommended building a secure psychiatric forensics hospital for these individuals rather than to repopulate them with the criminal population. And a recent 10-year state mental health plan called for the new facility. Also, Governor Sununu has stated that he supports building the new forensic psychiatric unit.
Peter, did you have a question?
Kathy, yeah, I do, since you're bringing that up.
Yep.
Is part of that legislation the transport of prisoners? I know there's some legislation being worked out, or there's some discussion of legislation on how they're going to be, folks with mental illness are going to be transported and so forth.
Right, you're absolutely right, but it's not part of
It's
that
not
bill that
this
was
one.
passed forward. It's not this one that went forward.
Okay.
But we'll keep an eye on
But
it.
we'll keep an eye on it. We've got that on
Yeah,
our list.
I mean, it definitely affects law enforcement, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
It kind of puts us in a tough area. I haven't seen it yet, though.
Keeping our eye open.
Okay, thank you.
The other one I'd like to just briefly talk about is we have House Bill 564 that is relative to the possession of firearms in the school safe zones. That moved forward today as well. The majority of the committee felt that implementation of this bill, which codifies the Federal Gun-Free Schools Act in New Hampshire law, is the best interest of the students and our state. It's the majority opinion that the committee that firearms do not belong in our schools or on school property, with the exception of trained personnel authorized by school administration. This moved forward, and I think it's a good thing to keep our students safe.
Is it different than what we've had in the past? Don't we have a regulation
No, it's a 1,000-foot buffer zone, I believe.
from school property?
Yes,
And so what does this change?
that's what it is, changing.
Oh, changing it to us. But we had something that there was red lines that you couldn't go within a certain distance of the schools?
It wasn't throughout the
Throughout the
state.
state.
It
This
was
is-
by town by town.
Oh, so this just codifies it across the
Exactly.
state?
Across the state,
Exactly.
yes.
Okay.
And that excludes police departments?
Oh, absolutely.
Seeing
It's at the
how
discretion.
we have a
Absolutely, great question, and that was a big debate. It's at the discretion of the administrative offices for the
Okay.
school, and, for instance, militias, if they're doing a Revolutionary War presentation, they will be allowed to be on the school property with their muskets and all of that. That's not anyone, the police departments, the criminal justice professionals, any of them are more than welcome to go on the school, as long as they're authorized personnel to be there. It's to prevent people that have weapons, guns, from just freely going in. It also, part of the legislature also has a provision that if, say, a parent or a known other is picking their child up from school and they have the ability to carry, that they're going to keep their weapon in their vehicle. They're not going to have to unload it, they're not going to have to do anything else, they're just going to have to keep it in their vehicle away from the 1,000-foot buffer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a bunch of things to present to you. First of all, this week, there was an MVD warrant article meeting that happened, and Rosemary Rung, Representative Rosemary Rung, gave a presentation that was very, very good. I don't think it was videotaped. I don't think it was televised, was it? It was? Okay, then absolutely everybody should watch it. Basically, what it comes down to is there's 2 warrant articles to clean wells 7 and 8 and 2 and 3. This would increase the water usage yearly amount by approximately $250, which sounds like a lot of money, but as a private well owner, I've paid well over $3,000 to get clean water, so $250 a year would be a bargain. And I still have to pay at least $500 a year just for filtration. So that's something to keep your eyes on. That meeting is coming up, and that's if you have time, you should watch that YouTube video. All right. So with regard to some of the House bills, as Kathy talked about, we've spent the last 2 days up in Concord. It's been crazy. A lot of work was done. House Bill 232 was the prohibition of sanctuary cities in New Hampshire. That was defeated 211 to 132. There was just, it's inexpedient to legislate. House Bill 107 was I put this here because I'm on this committee, it was the control of aquatic invasive species, of which I knew nothing about before I started my term, and now I'm a friggin' expert on it. But anyway, that it's actually pretty interesting. That passed by a voice vote. House Bill 623, which is what you may be hearing about, was passed on a vote of 200 to 141, and this puts a tax on businesses, and people were very upset about this. It freezes the business enterprise tax and the business profits tax. Most of the taxes come from multinational and wealthiest firms, and it increases the state revenue by about $10 million. More importantly, the money from this taxing of the businesses is going to offset some of the private property taxes. So yes, it is a tax, but it's a tax that is meant to give relief to property owners. House Bill 481, that was one of the big ones. That was to legalize cannabis. Oh, do you have a
Just a
question?
second.
Go ahead. Oh, you ruined it. That was
I'm
my big
sorry,
one.
I'm sorry, but I'm so curious. So if that bill is going to give relief to property owners, how does the money get from the state level back to the towns or municipalities so that that trickles down?
It's a very complicated bill, and I can certainly I don't know the answer
Yeah,
to
because
that
it wasn't
right
in,
offhand.
it wasn't in the write-up on how
No,
they
no,
were
well, no, it would be in the
thinking of
actual bill
doing it.
itself.
I was just curious.
Yeah, yeah, I can get you that information.
No, no, don't go out of your way, but if you bump into
Well,
it.
go out of your way. I mean, it's pretty
I'll get it.
important if
Yeah,
you're gonna
I-
argue, if you're gonna
that's
argue
right,
that
it's
you're giving
income.
10 million back to the property
It's
taxpayers.
it's
It'd be
important.
interesting to see
Yeah,
how
yeah.
that happens.
Please, ladies.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no, I'll get you that information. House Bill 481, that was to legalize cannabis. The vote was to go forward with it, 209 to 147, so it was a little closer than everyone had expected it to be. I spoke with Chief Roy earlier. The chief is not for legalization, but has told me that she will comply with any law that comes down, which is always good to hear. Yeah, of
Sort of
course,
a
I know.
job, yeah.
But I just wanted to. Another interesting bill that just happened this afternoon was House Bill 567, and that was to change New Hampshire to the Atlantic time zone. There's a big discussion about this with neighboring states. I guess Massachusetts and Maine, maybe Vermont and New Hampshire are talking about going to the Atlantic time zone. This was actually a pretty popular bill, and it did pass, although I voted against it. The biggest reason is that if we do this, it means that in the wintertime, in the darkest of the winter, those 2 months, the sun will rise at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm thinking about all of those kids that have to walk.
on the other end?
Yeah.
Well, what's the point?
Well, it's just to get rid of that fall behind, or fall behind, spring forward, that everybody. Apparently, there's statistics that show that when that's done, there are more automobile accidents, there are more suicides, there's more psychiatric disorder, adjusting to the time. I don't know. It's like 1 or 2 days of complaining, and then you're all set. So, but anyway, I voted against that one, but it did pass. So, but that doesn't mean that it still has many more steps on its journey. This is just the House.
Go through the Senate House.
Right. This is, and I think that might have had a fiscal note attached to it. I'm not sure. House Bill 438 was to tax premium cigars, which sounds like, why are we doing another tax? However, for whatever reason, a previous legislation decided that all tobacco products could be taxed with the exception of premium cigars. So somebody obviously figured out that they liked this and they didn't want to pay taxes. So that bill was really to rectify something that had been left out. It's really not that controversial. What was controversial was House Bill 218, which is the removal of the use of deadly force by a law officer. That was killed, ITL 277 to 62. So that was almost unanimous on that one. Representative Bob LaRue, he has joined the Resources, Recreation, and Development Committee, which is the same committee that Representative Rung and I am on, and so we have set a little bit of history up in Concord with having 3 representatives from the same town on one committee. I know that you're all real excited about that. We
That's
were.
pretty thrilling.
Yeah. And then in that committee, we heard a bill from Representative Janine Notter on about going after polluters who contaminate the water and getting any kind of judgment placed into the Clean Water Fund, which would then help towns to clean water and that kind of thing. Sounds like a good thing, and it probably will go through, but I just want people to realize that that gives zero relief to private well owners. It is only for public water. So I verified this with DES, and we could be getting a lot of money into this fund, but the private well owners have absolutely no access to it. So there's still going to be many lawsuits against Saint-Gobain, and it's still going to be a problem. And this fund only treats the water. It doesn't treat the land or the air or the animals, the environment, that kind of thing. The last update that I have, which is really exciting, is House Bill 572, which now makes, although it needs to go through the Senate and the governor needs to sign it, The second Saturday in June is now going to be Pollyanna of Littleton, New Hampshire Recognition Day.
I've
So,
been waiting.
yeah, everybody's been waiting.
Wow.
About time.
People have been walking around the State House with these Pollyanna buttons, and,
And
you know.
they say you guys don't work.
And they, yeah, that's right. So, yeah, everybody's like, have a good day. And it's like, oh. So that's it. That's it. I mean, we did many more bills than this, but those are just some of the ones that I thought you'd be
Was
interested
that an
in.
overwhelming vote for that? Did everyone?
Oh, it was,
Or was it a
Unanimous.
bipartisan kind of?
I think there
That
were a
was
few.
unanimous.
I
I think
think
it was
there
unanimous,
was,
Pollyanna.
I think it was, yeah, I
It was
think it was,
unanimous.
yeah. There's a few in the back corner
Something
that
has
say
to
no
be
to
unanimous.
everything, but no,
Good.
Bipartisan.
it was bipartisan, yeah. So any questions?
Yeah, actually, is there any, did you hear any, is there a review of the current bail laws going on at some point?
That is in a bill. I don't even know if it's been heard yet. The bills that are going through now are all the ones that have fiscal notes attached, and I'm not sure that that one has a fiscal note, but it hasn't been on the calendars. We haven't voted on it or anything yet, but
I'd ask all the state reps to look at that carefully, because I'm seeing some things right now, bail-wise, that leave me scratching my head.
yeah.
I see some people that I don't believe should be out. So I think that we need to take a good look at this, if we
Well,
could.
When we talked to Chief Roy as well as Fire Chief Courier, although he's not at the legal point, I mean, basically they said it's a problem because people commit crimes and they just are released and they commit them again and they're released.
Yeah,
and
they
so-
changed it from a simple flight risk and threat to the community. Now it's gotten so convoluted, and there are people walking out of courtrooms that I don't believe should be, so.
And I think that is going to be addressed. I mean, there were certainly unintended consequences of that bill, and one that we didn't anticipate is that it's just essentially a revolving door. So it is trying to be addressed. I will let you know when it comes up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for coming in. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Bringing us to the town manager's report.
I don't have anything.
Does anybody have any questions for the town manager on her report? Seeing none, we'll move along. We have no consent agenda or old business for tonight. Moving along to new business, the first item is a donation acceptance for the Merrimack Police Department submitted by Deputy Chief Brian LeVay. Town Council to consider the acceptance and expenditure of an anonymous donation of two 40-millimeter Sage less lethal projectile launchers valued at $4,000 pursuant to RSA 3195E and Charter Article 815.
Good evening, Town Manager and members of the council. As you said, the item before the Town Council is a donation, an anonymous donation of two 40-millimeter Sage less lethal weapons. These devices fire essentially foam batons and also non-lethal irritant sprays such as CS spray or OC spray. Too often now, police departments across the country are dealing with emotionally disturbed people. They might be mental health issues, or it might be just someone having a crisis moment. And at that time, we're called in and we have to deal with a critical situation. Often these times are dealt with rather quickly, and we like to try to de-escalate everything. These things can turn quickly into a lethal force situation. What this device would allow us to do is basically buy some time and some distance. Currently, we have several less than lethal devices that we use, such as OC spray, batons, taser predominantly. However, all these needs to be done when you're close range with the suspect. Even a taser at 21 feet is not going to be too effective because it's not going to be, chances are of you getting a shot on target is very, very low. So this device can be used up to 125 feet away. It basically would buy us some time and distance to hopefully de-escalate, to talk to this person that's having this crisis, and hopefully to avoid a fatal situation. Essentially, the device obviously depends on the range, but it's like being struck by a Major League Baseball fastball pitch by a Major League pitcher. And the device fires off what essentially is a souped-up Batman shuttlecock, the tip of it. That's like the foam that comes out of it. So these would be situated in the supervisor's vehicles so they could be easily deployed. We currently have instructors that can teach less than lethal devices. We would go through training and would also be operated through a standard operating procedure that we have developed in using these weapons. Hopefully, it's a situation where we never have to use it, but I think it's an important tool that our officers need to have so we can de-escalate it to avoid a lethal force situation when obviously this person is going through some crisis.
Any other questions? Peter?
Guys, I have a number of questions. When I saw this, so I'm hoping you can answer some of them for me. First of all, I've never seen it. Do you guys happen to have a photo of what this looks like?
I do not have a photo with me right
A
now.
launcher? Okay.
So essentially, it's an over-under, similar to like a shotgun, but a larger barrel. So it's a
Okay.
40 millimeter barrel, so probably about that size. It's over-under, and basically the projectiles comes out of those tubes.
Okay. Now, as far as ammunition you'll be using, basically a foam bullet is whatever you want to call it?
They call it foam baton, that's the way
Okay.
Sage
And would
describes
you
it.
guys be using the tear gas and CN out of it as well?
That's another munition they have. They have several different types of munitions,
Okay.
based on the situation, distance, obviously, what travels better and such. That's also things that we'd be training on.
Okay.
We're also going to be getting training munitions as well, so we can constantly reload these items without a huge cost to us.
Now, Deputy Chief Levesque, is there a certification requirement as far as instructors, and then is there an annual certification or?
Yes, we already have instructors, knowing that we're looking forward to this device down the road. We've already put several officers into instructor school, and that's the only certification you need. They're certified instructors, and they can then turn around and train our officers.
Okay. And I guess the product itself, does it come with a warranty?
I'm not certain on the warranty terms, but I'm fairly certain that most devices come with at least a year warranty.
Okay. As far as liabilities wise, I know, when we looked at tasers and everything else, we looked at what the overall industry-wide liabilities are for this. So this type of product, is there any type of, are we looking at, is there liability issues, or what, have we looked at that?
I think inherently with the job that we do, there's always liability issues. However, I would counter saying that if we don't have the proper less lethal tools, we're going to be exposed to more liability. The more options we have to de-escalate it, and there's actually reports that just pulling out the device and showing it similar to the tasers that we do, that de-escalates enough and doesn't even have to be fired.
Okay. And the maintenance requirements of this weapon, what would those require?
I
would assume just usual cleaning after it being fired.
Yeah, it's just there's not a lot of maintenance required with one of these. There really isn't. So just very minor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who can you guys identify the person donating it?
We have an anonymous donor that came to us. We presented several items to her, and this is what she chose.
Okay. Thank you.
Bill, did you have a question? I thought I saw your hand up. I'm asking.
I'll defer to my colleagues,
Barbara?
because I don't know how I want to phrase my question right now.
So this is a device that's about the size of what? A rocket launcher? I mean, you said that people usually get impressed when they see it.
I have a picture here if you want.
Oh, you do? I'd love to see.
I'll get back.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, it must be a good size. To be an air gun, I take it it's an air gun type situation that can fire off this projectile.
It's probably about this long in length. The barrels are fairly short. It's an over-under configuration, so if anyone's familiar with a shotgun, an over-under shotgun, so it's a break open, so it tilts, you break it open, you load in the 2 rounds, put it back together. You can use different types of sights on it, so you can use an iron sight setup like you would with a regular rifle.
Got it.
Or a lot of agencies use a red dot sight that you would typically have on a rifle, so you can accurately fire.
Yeah.
The barrels are rifled, so it's not a smooth bore. The issues that some of the agencies that have the beanbag rounds, if you heard of beanbag rounds that some of the agencies use for as a less lethal tool, They're great, they work. The problem with the beanbag rounds is that a lot of times they're fired out of a smoothbore barrel, so they're not rifled, so they have a tendency to start going in different directions. These are rifled and they shoot straight and flat. So the chance of, the likelihood of hitting where you're aiming is that much better and that much greater, and reduces liability of a round going somewhere you don't want it to go.
And I take it that in the training, there are specific places where you attempt not to hit, like in the head?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, just like a taser. There are preferred target areas for taser usage. This is the same thing, and that's the way our training would be for this particular device, so.
I'd just like to point out, too, there are cases, and you can search the internet, where people cutting their own throats have been saved by this device. In Madison, Wisconsin, the gentleman was slicing his own throat. They struck him with the foam baton, got him to drop the knife, and then they were able to render first aid, saving his life. So it can be used in a wide range of situations. Hopefully, we never have to use it.
In Spokane, they had a situation where a subject was distraught, was causing an issue in I think it was an apartment building, and they had we call lethal cover in the situation because he had a knife. So you had lethal cover and they had less lethal, and they actually deployed the taser, but it wasn't an effective hit. Taser can be very effective, but if you don't get the probe contact you need, it can be ineffective. You don't get the immobilization, you don't get the pain compliance. The taser didn't work, and the last resort, and this was a suicide by cop situation, was this 40 millimeter, and actually knocked the guy down. And typically the target area is in the abdomen. And they hit him there, folded the guy right down, and the officers were able to take the gentleman into custody without it becoming a deadly force situation.
So it stimulates pain, and they react to that, and that gives you time.
Correct.
Correct. It startles them, essentially.
It startles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then typically,
That's-
typically it just leaves bruising. That's what the majority of the injuries are.
But I had questions as well, but Pete, you addressed those, in terms of certification and ensuring the effective and appropriate use, but you took care of that.
I gotta imagine you guys, like you do with what most of your less lethal on any weapons, have an SOP, it's gonna be set up. I know the department's been great about that, so.
Correct. There is a new less lethal SOP that we have developed.
So if you're going to be deploying these in supervisor cars, how effective is it going to be to get it to the scene where it's needed? I mean, are the supervisor cars out there with regular patrols, or do they have to call out the supervisor from the office? Or?
They are, all our supervisors go to what we consider hot calls. So if they hear the dispatch being dispatched for a man with a knife in the supermarket, they're going to be responding as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they all go, it's very important that our road supervisors always go to all the, important calls, so it will be right there quickly.
Okay, so it would be deployable at least reasonably
Absolutely.
quickly before you need to get
Absolutely.
more close. What's the accuracy of these? You're saying you can target 125, 150 feet, something like that, with reasonable accuracy, or?
Of course, at that point, you're sort of lobbying it in there, but most of the confrontations, according to SAGE data, is basically 25 feet or below, but it is capable of going that distance. Of course, in the training, they're going to talk about range to the threat, and that's something that we'll have to deal with. But as far as percentage-wise, I'm not sure the exact percentage. As the captain stated, it is a rifled barrel, so it does fly true to this path.
Right. But you're more likely to be interfacing with the individual at 25 to 50 feet or something like that. Where you
Correct,
can
correct.
talk to them and they can hear you and
Correct.
stuff like that.
Yes,
But
correct.
that's better than 10 or 15 feet where tasers would be effective and.
Right, and
things
the
of that
reactionary
nature.
distance would be greater if we're at 50 feet away.
Yeah.
So we can time to hopefully de-escalate and react quicker.
Okay. And the presumption is 1 or 2 shots max would be required, and so.
I've seen one shot be very effective with this, yeah. So the second shot is just a backup if you need it, but.
Or if you have a second accomplice or something.
Correctly
Yeah.
cited, it would be very.
Yeah. Eileen?
Does part of your training include having to experience it? Like Bill had a taser, right? No?
On this thing, we don't get shot by our own guns either, so.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. That's a good point.
Wait a minute, you said less lethal.
Touche.
So I can't do a demonstration this May?
I mean, it could be a very interesting demo this May, yeah. Or something to that effect. One other factor I wanted to ask, cost of the munitions and stuff like that, or do we foresee bringing in different types of munitions and stuff in the future, or?
So part of the bid has different munitions in it as well as a training pack, so we continue to train, they're reloadable. The good thing about this company, Sage, is if you provide them with an after-action report, they replace the munition. So essentially, they want to gather the data to ensure these are being used the proper way. And once you submit that, they then send the munition back.
So does this money, this donation cover the cost of the two units plus the training packs? Or?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We want to make sure that we had enough to be able to train our officers.
Okay. And all officers will be trained? Or just supervisors and select officers, or?
Eventually, we'd like to have all officers, but of course, if the supervisor is going to be carrying it, we're going to start with them and then go backwards and make sure that everyone is familiar with the weapon.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the town council accept a donation of two 40-millimeter Sage less lethal projectile launchers valued at $4,091.04, and that furthermore, the town manager or proxy be authorized to sign any paperwork necessary to perfect the transaction. And furthermore, that either the town or the police department submit a letter of thanks to the anonymous donor for their gracious contribution.
Second.
Motion by Bill, seconded by Barbara. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That's 5-0-0. Bart?
You get it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brings us to item number 2 on our agenda, the consideration of changes to the Merrimack Town Code, Chapter 183, Vehicles and Traffic. This is a first reading. Does,
Don.
I know Dawn's coming out, but remind me, the first reading and then we go to a public hearing?
First reading, public hearing, and then
Second
final
reading or
second
final
reading.
reading. Okay. Welcome, Dawn.
Hi.
When you're ready,
When it's ready.
when it's available.
When it's ready.
We can see it behind you, and hopefully we have it here, so
Not yet. Oh, here, but
we can see it in our front of us from our packet.
So,
Yeah, it's a little hard to read back there.
as Connie Olet had come up earlier, and she had called.
Is your mic on? Or can you
It
get a
says
little
it.
bit closer to it?
It says it's on. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Connie Olet had come in earlier, before all the snow started this year. And we've been.
You need to either turn it on again or get
talk
closer.
louder.
Try now.
Okay. How's
There
that?
you go.
There we go. So Mrs. Olet was in, and I've gone out with her. I've looked at the area in concern, and this is DW Drive, where it intersects with DW Highway. So there were many issues she brought up, and as she explained, and so I took that opportunity, and I've also listened to others that have been having issues in that particular area, one of which came from the police chief. She was has noted that people from the F.E. Everett, when there is an accident up there, they're coming down onto DW Highway. Quite often, they'll take DW Drive as a bypass. They'll try zipping down through. So this was a multifaceted reason why we're here tonight. There are things I can do through Public Works to help, and we have been working on that type other issues, but this needs your attention. So one of the easiest things at this point we can come up with was to come up with basically changing the yield sign that's at the DW Drive to a stop sign. What that will do is stop the people from entering into DW Drive. You can yield in, but the area that you see I've kind of highlighted here in a light orange, there's a lot going on in that area. You've got the condos coming in, making rights and lefts, and people turning in to the right and the left. So you've got people on DW Highway that are also stopping and starting. Probably at some point in the future, we've been thinking about maybe doing some reconfiguration, but it's going to take time, it's going to take money. So what we want to do is to keep the public safe at this point, and one of our first steps would be to change that stop sign or yield sign to a stop sign. And this is what it looks like, or would look like, pulling it back. So you can see the yield sign is way down the road. It's almost to DW Highway. But what happens if there's somebody on DW Highway that wants to take a left into the condos, somebody behind them then comes around the side, and now you've got three people in the same area. So with the stop sign, what we hope to do is to be able to pull the people back to stop that one particular movement. The other thing we're looking at is restriping this area, but we don't restripe it this time of year, so obviously we'll take that into consideration. You'll also see right here, there's a delineator post that had a reflector on it that is now missing. So I'm looking at different types of reflectors where it might be a little bit larger, so that as you're coming down DW Highway and wanted to make that left, you'll be able to see, especially in the snow, where that is better. But again, once those are things that we can take care of internally, but what we need you tonight is to decide on the yield sign to the stop sign. That's a change in the code, whereas the rest of the improvements we can do through the highway. We did go to the Highway Safety Committee already, and they made a motion to recommend changing this sign. So, we brought this before them last month, and we have discussed this, so. It's a tricky area. I mean, there's no doubt.
It is. I would argue there's plenty of them in Merrimack, but Peter and then Bill?
Don, I know you just touched upon it, but I mean, I've looked at that intersection many times over the years, and it goes against all logic having people making left-hand turns at those angles and stuff, and I'm sure you agree with that. And I'm thinking, why do we even need that section from the entrance of Horseshoe Pond condominiums to the northernmost part of that? Why don't we just close that off and look at, if we have to maybe widen that intersection there across from King Kona as the main entrance? I know south of that, there's folks with driveways there, and you can't if they're going north and they want to go down there. But it seems to me that that's just a useless piece of roadway. And I know I'm going to hear, well, this costs money, and I get that. But maybe we should be looking at that, and if it's that much of a risk and a danger, maybe we lay some Jersey barriers on each end of that and just close that section off, and then use the intersection across from King Kona as the main access to and from that neighborhood. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there, some thoughts on that, because it just seems to me that that roadway originally was configured years, I'm going way back. There was a Merrimack restaurant over in there and Sheila's Grove Campground, which is now the condominiums and everything in there. And that was almost like a pull-in spot for the folks to go to that restaurant. This is going back 30, 40 years. So, I mean, I don't see the need for that little section of roadway.
This was actually part of the DW Highway, and DW Highway got straightened out. The very first thing I said to Ms. Olette when she was that, just shut that section off. But like you said, it's going to take some time, it's going to take design, because you can't just come up to DW Highway. We're going to have to make turn lanes, and that, it's going to take some design to be able to do that. But yes, that was my very first thought, was to shut that right off and to come out straight at a T. The condos, that entrance probably shouldn't have been put right across the street. I mean, that was a number of years ago. I mean, that was in the design. It should not have been put there because it has worsened that whole section right there. So temporarily for now, and I mean, I can put that on our to-do list, but it'll take some doing. You can't put all the traffic out there at this point in the condition that it's at.
And I understand that. And I guess maybe the conversation tonight is, one, yeah, it does need to be addressed, but two, maybe we need to start the process of looking at future reconfigurations and costs and so forth. Thanks.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I almost wish we had this conversation a year ago when we dug up that part of the road when we were doing the culvert, because then we could have had a more substantive conversation about widening that particular road in light of what we're talking about tonight. I guess that the immediate question that I would ask is, and I don't necessarily have any objections with the yield sign or the stop sign there. That's really, it doesn't bother me. Is there anything that prohibits us from putting a right-hand turn only on Concord Road there? So that we're taking people
On
out of
which
that Concord Road
It's the condos.
is the condos, making that a right-hand turn only, and then if people really want to go northbound, they can drive back around and get back up to the Merrimack 360 and then use the light, the signalization system that's set up there so that they can make a safe left-hand turn onto the traffic, which would ameliorate that particular intersection there so that there are people that are trying to make, at this stage, trying to make a left-hand turn on that part of the DW driveway. At least there's a level of assurance that we're telling people from the condo, that's a right-hand turn only. I mean, is that something that we can do? Outside of all the engineering designs, which I agree with, I mean, that whole area needs to be redesigned. But for a short-term fix, can that be a right turn only?
I will have to look into that.
Okay.
I don't know we don't maintain that road. That's not a town
Not a town road.
so I don't know what
So that was going to be
jurisdiction
my
it would
next
have.
question. We don't own that road? That's a state road?
No, it's
No,
I
it's
thought that
a
was
private.
private
It's
road.
private.
It's owned by the condominium association.
But what I'm saying is that at some particular point, that condo only goes so far to the road, and then then you've got something onto the right of way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like a driveway.
Well-
I mean, it's a big driveway, but I think it's,
Let me look into it a little bit for you.
I mean, you may have to talk to Tim. I mean, you'd have to look and see what was approved at site plan back when this
Right,
condominium.
exactly.
So, but to me, that would, making that a right-hand turn only, I don't want to say it solves the problem, but it would be a temporary fix to, and here's your SAT word, I'll say it again, ameliorate that situation so that we're mitigating some of the traffic concerns that exist at that particular intersection.
that's not even a problem that I heard you bring up.
No, it's something
Coming
I
out of
picked
the
up on
condominiums,
watching.
that's an
But she just,
additional.
but I shouldn't say she, I apologize. Dawn mentioned that back when they were doing site review, that particular intersection, that particular driveway probably should not have been put in. I mean, that was Dawn's testimony, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so if that was her testimony, then really the short fix is to see whether or not we can make a right-hand turn only, because I understand that the people coming in and coming out, that's one particular issue that's separate. I'm trying to fix the larger problem that seems to exist at that particular intersection, which is impacting the people of Island Drive, trying to make that southbound turn in to their home. If you make, if you make that flow going to the right-hand side, going southbound only, it fixes, to me, it helps, it helps lessen the burden that exists at that intersection.
Okay. Barbara?
Yeah, Don, my question is, does putting the stop sign there now that we've heard from our 2 residents, is that going to really solve the problem? Because they're saying where the yield going to stop sign is may not be in the right place. Because they were saying yellow line all the way up and before Island Drive or before the condos or at the condos.
That's one issue.
Oh, that's a separate issue.
I mean, that's.
Is that like the sneak through as well?
Right, it's that part that we're trying
Yeah,
to
'cause
slow down.
I watch people sneaking through there all the time at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, do you think their issue is actually resolved if we put the stop sign where?
Not totally.
Okay.
But it will be for your part of what you need to do. I will take it further. I've been investigating or having the police give me the accident reports. And I've asked for more information, and I just got the additional information this week. So once I have that, now I can sit down and decide what else can we do. Is there any signage? You know, we don't really want to do a whole lot of signs because nobody pays attention.
A
And they
light?
kind of,
I agree with
there's
that.
a street light there. We've looked at that. That was another option. I've looked at many different options. So I need to do a little bit more work. And short of reconstructing the road, we'll see what we can do to help ease it, at least for now, until we do a reconstruction in the area.
Nancy?
I really want to get behind Pete's suggestion. I really do think that's the best. And also, it's probably the most cost-effective. I do understand that you'd have to find a way to have a left-hand lane. But that's the major issue that I would see there. Because in order to access it from the opposite side, you'd have the backup. But other than that, you could take a right. You wouldn't need one if you're going north going in. It's only when you're coming from the north of town and you want to get in there in the left-hand lane. So that, and just taking away that whole the DW diner. Well, after you have breakfast. But I do see that as a very positive kind of thing. Is it going to create some inconveniences? Yes, it will. But when you're talking about weighing inconveniences and safety, I think it wins hand down. So I really want to support Pete on that concept and encourage you to, and I know you mentioned it, so I continue
That
to
was my
encourage.
very first thought. You know, we don't really
I
need
think
that
for now, the
section.
stop sign, is it the solution? No.
No.
And I think that putting those lines in, you're absolutely right. A lot of times you don't even know that's a two-way.
Yeah.
Because unless you see the lines, but,
And I plan to do more on DW Highway also. I mean, we'll do the
so
whole.
you'll do it at the same time.
Right.
Peter?
Don, can you pull this picture back up on the screen so the folks at home?
I can try.
Can you turn your mic on, please? Can you turn your mic on,
Oh,
please?
sorry. Can you put this picture back up on the screen? Thank you.
Down, next one, this one?
Okay, there. So we are proposing, I'm not sure what that yellow line is going up the side of that car, but,
That's Google Maps.
Google
Oh, okay.
Maps.
Google Maps.
but obviously, we're gonna have to, the breakdown lane, fog line, obviously, that's gonna get pulled back or get sandblasted off. It's not gonna, that white line's not gonna continue to extend, is it?
We might extend it a little bit more.
Across the intersection?
It's not going to go across the intersection.
Okay.
No. But it's a little deceptive in that area.
Yeah.
So we will pull it up a little bit further, but it won't block the entire intersection, no.
Yeah, because, I mean, it almost, and if you pull it back too far, I could see somebody coming southbound looking, is this another lane of travel, like you said earlier?
It's a very confusing
Yeah.
intersection.
Yeah,
It really is.
okay. A woman, and I'm sorry, ma'am, I forget your name.
Willett and
Yeah.
O'Neill.
Oh, yeah, ma'am, Miss O'Neill, Now, you said we aren't even addressing the right area?
If you're going to respond, you need to come up to a mic. Sorry, Margaret.
Well, that's what I said.
The real area of concern is right at the condominiums. So if you're coming north up DW Drive, before you get to the condominiums, there could be a stop sign. That would address the people who are racing up DW Drive to cut into traffic because there'd be a stop sign. It also prevents people from coming out of the condominiums and just rushing across the road, which is what they like to do. They ignore their stop sign because there's overhanging trees. So they just go right across, and you can be coming from Island Drive, turning right and going left so that you can go south, and you're cut off. I mean, I almost hit somebody very recently and called the police, and they said, "Oh, we didn't even see the stop sign. Sorry." You know, and it's like, that's not good enough. But going north, that intersection has been there for the 40 years I've lived here. There's never really been an issue merging because most people know a yield means yield until the traffic clears. And coming south, it was a distinct help to have the left turn lane across from Monroe or right at the edge of the at the edge of East Ridge, coming south and then go over. And it's the same thing. You watch and you cross over the traffic. But there's nothing on the median, the grassy median, saying this is a two-way street. So the real problem is down at the condominiums. Before we get to the condominiums, there's got to be at least 2 stop signs there. One so that the condominiums stop, one so that Island Drive stops, or DW Drive stops and goes left.
Now, have you discussed this with the Highway Safety Committee, or is this your first time talking?
No, I haven't. I just was made aware of the discussion tonight, so I thought I would put in my 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying makes sense, and it sounds like it's a two-pronged effort. We're trying to deal with that, and also at the other end, where the other area you've discussed, too, has some issues, so.
Right. And if they took out this grassy area and put a left turn lane in there, it would be good for both King Cone, who it always stacks up there, people trying to get into King Cone, and people coming south and going into Island Drive. We could easily use the crossover at the condominiums. But it's not, you're more likely to get hit there because of the fact that it's a downward slope. And so you're more likely to get hit at that intersection than to cross over when we can see all the way down the road and be able to pass safely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill.
One of the first things I did when I came here was I put the stop sign, came in here and asked for the stop sign on Island Drive. So there is already a stop sign on Island Drive.
Yeah, but that's not where she's talking about. She's talking about on DW Drive at Pondview, so that you can't go straight through on DW Drive without stopping.
We had that discussion when we came in, when I put the one on Island Drive.
Yes.
And nobody wanted to have any other stop signs.
Nobody
within
wanted
that.
it on Island Drive either, but.
No, I know.
Or I certainly didn't, but I guess I'm opposed to this. I feel like the yield sign tells people to yield, and if they're not willing to do that, they're not going to pay any attention to the stop sign either. And so I'm not sure that we're buying anything by doing that. I think a stop sign placed at Pondview Drive would stop the cut-through and the concern about DW Drive, and would help to ameliorate that problem, but I'm not sure it's a total solution. Any changes of cutting off that piece of road would require a turn lane on DW Highway so that folks could get onto Pondview/Island Drive. And so that's not something we can do quickly, and I wouldn't recommend shutting off that road in advance of that. Right now, a yield sign tells people to yield and be aware of what's going on. To argue that they can't handle that and we have to make them stop, but they're not going to stop anyway. So I don't see that we're buying anything with this effort, personally.
The more I think about it, this kind of reminds me of Loop Road, further
Yeah.
north at Lobster Boat. And you go beyond Lobster Boat, you come over the hill past the parking lot, that's a stop sign. That's a stop sign. You literally have to stop there because you've got You've got the lights down at the Lobster, but then you have the second set of lights up at Papoose Lake Road. So you could make the same concept there. You could put a yield sign there, you could put a stop sign there. And I don't think it's the same principles still apply.
So you're,
It's
You're all-
similar, I guess it's not the same situation, but it's similar.
It's similar is what I'm getting at. You know, you don't have the blow-through that, you know, people thinking that it's Talladega going down DW
do you
Drive. when-
honestly think people don't pay attention to stops as compared to yield? No,
Yeah, I do.
see, I don't.
I mean, obviously,
think
they
they
don't
do.
coming out of Pondview Drive. They're,
Well, it's
and they
yield.
have to know that stop, no.
Oh, I'm
Coming out of the
Pondview.
condominiums, it is a stop sign. They have to know it's there if they live there. So the only people that could argue that they didn't know would be guests. And I wouldn't imagine that's that many, but there could be.
But I think, okay, I think coming out of a driveway has different implications when you're on the road. So I would view it a little bit, but that's just my opinion.
Okay,
But I understand.
Peter?
If we were to make it a stop sign, do we lose anything, or do we gain anything? You know, I guess that's kind of what you've brought up, Tom. You've said it. I don't really see it as gaining anything or losing anything if you tell people to stop. But my concern is that we do have a representative from the condo association, and I'm gonna guess, there isn't?
No, she's just,
Nobody-
she's
okay.
just a resident.
I guess I'm kind of curious, this is going to affect the two neighborhoods, Island Drive and the condo.
Pondview.
But it has
Yeah.
gone through the highway safety already.
Excuse me?
It's already gone through the highway safety committee.
Yeah.
But I
But
don't
they
know
were
that they got the
notified.
full story, but,
I'm not hearing that the stop sign is a major issue to them.
Okay.
I'm not hearing that.
And that's why I guess if I've got the professionals, the Highway Safety Committee recommending it, then I tend to go with that. I don't think we lose anything. I don't know if we get, like Tom said, I don't know if we gain anything, but
We don't
I've got the folks that we asked to review these things, and they're making a recommendation, and I don't think a stop sign is a big ticket item. But I do think, and I strongly recommend that we do change that whole intersection area at some point in the future. And by taking that piece of land and closing off that section of road, we create more space to make maybe wider and make some turn lanes too, so. But that's my 2 cents, thanks.
What we'd end up doing is moving the green island basically back to
Right.
where the road is and
Exactly.
using that area for the additional lane.
You have that
lanes.
opportunity.
Because we have certain distances we'll have to be able to make and probably other turning areas, one to turn into the Concord Road from this one. This is the intersection that Mrs. Olet brought up to me. This is what I've concentrated
Yeah.
on through it. But what this will do, and the stop sign will do, when we pull it back, is to give people on the DW highway, the ones that want to go around somebody that's making a left-hand turn right there. There isn't a left-hand turn lane right there going into the condos on Concord Road. So this will give the area, otherwise there's no room to be able to have 3 cars sitting there side by side and trying to pass.
but I would argue that what we'd lose by putting a stop sign there is the opportunity to merge in with traffic in an easy, smooth flow. There are many times at exit 7 up in Manchester, or 6, I don't know, past Granite Road, the next one, that's the major rotary, trying to get on in that area southbound. People come down that ramp and they'll stop at the end of the ramp and then try to merge into high-speed traffic. It doesn't work well. And it makes me stop. It very frustrates me because I'm sitting here trying to merge into this traffic and I'm doing it from a dead stop. And it doesn't work well. If you're trying to merge into DW Highway going northbound, it's a lot easier if you can be moving with plenty of sight distance to yield into the traffic than it is to stop and then go. It's wear and tear on the vehicles, it's wear and tear on the individuals. The concern about the people turning left and folks going around them, I haven't seen that issue, so I don't understand it per se. Why, I mean, if your car is coming up DW Drive and you're in the way, they can't get around, then that means you can go. You know, if you're gonna sit there and argue with somebody about whether your bumper's ahead of their bumper, then you've just got a problem, you're being foolish. And we have to allow drivers to have some intelligence. Maybe that's a stretch, but I still feel the yield sign there is fine, and don't believe that the stop sign is going to give us an advantage. Barbara?
Yeah, that area is a mess because I go through there quite a bit. And one thing I've seen is that people don't respect the yield signs, and it's not only in that area, it's all through town. And if people are driving over 30 miles an hour on the DW, they're speeding. So
How often do you see?
it's only going to get worse as we get all the new building going on and new construction. There's going to be more volume. I want the stop sign.
More volume,
personally.
not necessarily more speed.
No, we don't want more speed, but we definitely have more volume. And if it's an issue now, it's only going to be an issue later on as well.
When they redo the F.E. Everett, it's going to be
Really a mess.
And nothing's going to help that.
no.
All right, I think we've discussed this to death. I would like to make a motion so everybody can make their decision on this. I'd like to move the proposed changes to the Town Code Chapter 183, Vehicles and Traffic, be moved to public hearing. And we'll hear more during that time.
Second.
Moved by Nancy and seconded by Peter. Any other discussion on the motion?
Please.
Please, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed. Abstaining? None. So it passes 4-1-0. We'll go to a public hearing with it.
Thank you, Don.
Tom?
Yes, Peter?
Ms. O'Neill, this was the item on the agenda, we specifically had to address this stop sign. I'm going to suggest that you do speak with the Highway Safety Committee regarding your concerns, and then whatever discussion is had, then maybe they'll bring that forward, and we'll move forward on your concerns. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, they know each other. It brings us to our third item on the agenda, under new business. The deliberative session is coming up soon, before our next meeting, and we need to discuss the warrant and how we're going to approach the, who's going to move the warrant articles, who wants to second, and who's prepared, therefore, to speak to the different articles. At this point, I know Finley has put in a request to be the one to move the operating budget, unless there's somebody that has a strong desire to go there. I was going to suggest that he do that, and I was going to take the second for that. But if we start back with Article 2, the wastewater treatment facility bond, does anybody want to move that article? Nancy?
Quick question. During the deliberative session, is there going to be a presentation done?
I'm sure there is.
Are we going to be doing a presentation on any of these?
I don't think we're planning to do any particular presentations on the rest of the articles, you mean?
Well, I think it's going to be important. Maybe it can be done when you move the question. But I think there needs to be a little bit of discussion about the capital reserve funds, what it means, how it's going to show on the ballot, that kind of thing. You want to say something?
As I recall, as far as the operating budget goes, the operating budget, the chairman usually gives the presentation, and I think that would be the time to really focus on that.
But
Because
that's separate from the capital reserve fund as an article.
right, but I mean, I think it should be mentioned at both places, at both times, at both articles. So you say it during the operating fund. It looks different because the capital reserve fund deposits aren't in here. You'll see this in the upcoming article number, whatever, and then it can be brought up again. So I don't think it hurts to repeat it.
Okay, so should Finley do both then?
You have to ask
Both.
Finley.
What's
Oh,
second
the,
one you're
the
saying?
Well,
capital
the
reserve
oper-
fund.
you're
Article 3 and
talking-
Article 4.
Eileen's suggesting that Article 3 is the operating budget. And at that point, you'd probably start talking about the capital reserve funds, that it used to be there, but now it's a separate warrant article, which is in fact Article 4.
Right.
So if Finley wants to do 3 and 4 and connect them, but separate,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
That's fine.
he's not gonna like me suggesting that, but
That's why he's not here.
that's right. What else can we volunteer?
People being excused does not absolve them of being appointed to anything.
But I think he would understand the rationale
Oh,
for
absolutely.
that. And that's what I'm talking about. I think there has to be a little bit more information provided because it is a more complex ballot. And there are some unique kinds of articles that are going to have to be explained a little bit more than usual. Okay.
And this is a change.
Right.
If I can
From
take
what
a
you've
moment to
done
introduce
before.
Lynn, thank you for joining us. Lynn's our town moderator. I
Nobody knows me.
didn't mean to overlook you. I just,
So Article 2 is.
It's the wastewater
Sarita-
treatment bond.
Is Sarita going to be doing a presentation?
There'll be a presentation.
Okay.
I was thinking you might want to introduce that one
I'd-
because of the activity you've been doing with that one.
I'd be fine with that, yeah.
Does somebody want to second that?
I'll second that.
We'll put Bill down since he jumped on it.
That's fine.
And yeah, you can yield to Sarita. Do you have a problem with that at all? That we'll do a presentation like a shorter version than what they've been doing? And we'll have any printouts available at town meeting or?
I would hope you would have printouts available for people coming
For
in.
everything, but,
Yep.
but anything specific on the wastewater bond?
That
I mean, we need to
specific
have.
one, I think we need to have.
She probably might have a video. Have you seen the video she's done?
No.
That's different, I think.
I understand.
You need to have some handouts
Oh, yeah.
for people coming in, and then what she wants to do briefly
Just to explain.
would be good.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
So I'll work with Sarita.
Okay.
We are working, Eileen and myself are working on a deliberation handout which explains all the articles and gives a verbal detail of it.
I'm just wondering if we should have a
Like we have
special,
in the past.
special handout for the wastewater treatment bond, talking about wastewater treatment.
Yes.
I mean, if you can.
We will.
Yeah, okay.
I just want
I
to
think that would be advisable, because this is a big number.
Yes, it is.
I just want to verify, well, I'm thinking of it, it's probably inappropriate at this time. But we are going to be sending out those voter explanation things.
Yeah.
Someone had said to me they didn't get any last year, and I thought I had received it. So maybe that person just didn't get it. But I'm just validating that the voter registration guide, not registration, the voter
Voter
guide.
information guide.
There you go, voter information guide is in fact going to be sent out as well.
I would hope so.
Yes, it is. It's going to be such a long one because there are either 13 or 14 articles. So, we're trying to kind of weed down some of the general fund things that we've been doing because it's with the tax rate not increasing. I don't think we need as much, almost redundant material there. So maybe we can beef up some of the things for the wastewater treatment plant and a little bit more information on the capital reserve funds. And, again, I think it's never too often to say that the wastewater treatment bond is paid for by sewer users, not the taxpayers.
That's
And
important.
to reiterate, when we talk about these different articles, that, for example, capital reserves, this
Your
is not,
mic isn't on.
this is not affecting, this does not increase the tax rate. It's already built into it.
Yes.
And we have to keep on reiterating that, because if you look at this, it looks like, oh, add, but it's still, like when we talk about the contracts, that the approval of the contracts means that it's still the same tax rate, 510. And we have to keep on every article. This would not create an increase in the tax base. If you didn't vote for it, it would go down, but the point is, it's
Yeah.
not gonna go up. It's not gonna go up.
Right.
Because if you look at this, the knee-jerk reaction is, oh my God, look at all these things.
I understand. That's been our concern all along.
That's right.
I have no problem if we're on the, presenting the union contracts. I have no problem with that.
All right, well, let's work our way down, if you don't mind. Article 5, the wastewater treatment fund, capital reserve funds. Should we ask Finley to do that one as
I'll
well?
be
You
Happy
want-
to do that as well.
You want
And I'll
to do,
second that
okay.
as well.
Just because it fits together.
Yep.
Who's doing the general capital reserve?
Finley is,
Okay.
and I'll second that. Okay, you're keeping track.
Yep.
So the fire equipment capital reserve fund,
I'll move that.
Make the motion for Bill.
And
Bill make the motion. Who wants to second that?
Second. Okay.
Barbara does.
Barbara? There's a lot more here, so. The
Everybody gets a chance.
IAFF local union contract,
Sure.
I can move that.
Peter?
Pete,
Pete?
Bill seconds.
Yep.
I'll take 8.
The
Police?
Police Benevolent Association?
Pete wants to do that.
Oh, Pete,
Sure.
that one?
Well, I don't know that we want you to do all of them, Pete, if you don't
No, but
mind,
I'm
but,
saying she can do, Barbara can do the other couple.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll
Pete?
give you, I'll trade you.
So Pete can do,
Oh, you want to, all right. Well,
No, I'll give you,
Well,
I'll give you.
Pete, you're
the,
going to do 8?
and then Barbara.
And who's not here? Tom.
Tom Thornton is not here.
Tom's gonna second it.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Thornton can second that one?
Yep.
Sure.
So I'm, just for clarification here, I'm doing 7 and 8?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, we have-
Barbara, you're going to do 9?
Yep.
And
And who wants to second that?
Tom is doing that?
Sure, I'll second.
Pardon?
You're seconding number 9?
Me? Sure.
There you go.
Are we getting a list of this?
Yeah,
Yep.
she and I are both writing this
Yeah, I'm
down.
writing it too.
The Teamsters, Local 633?
I think Tom Thornton should be pushed into doing so.
Okay.
He
Tom-
should do that
Tom
one?
Thornton's
But I
doing it.
only got one, I can take another one.
Nope. We're gonna spread them out.
Okay. Volunteer.
And Nancy's gonna
I'll
second it?
for that.
Nancy's going to second that one? Okay.
So who's got 10? Tom?
Tom.
10, Tom T.
And Tom.
The Article 11, the,
Pete. We need a
Ask me.
fourth person. Bill. No.
I'll do 12.
Bill or Barbara? Barbara, you want to do that one?
I
Barbara,
can
you
do
could
12.
do
Oh, 11.
11.
11. Got it.
I'll second it.
And Peter?
And Bill wants to
And
do-
Bill, you said you'd do 12?
You please.
And I'll do second.
And Nancy will do the second on that? And that's all that we need to do, right? So we have Nancy and Bill doing Article 2, Finley and Tom K. doing Article 3, Finley and Tom K. doing Article 4, Nancy and Bill doing Article 5, Bill and Barbara doing Article 6, Peter and Bill doing Article 7, Peter and Tom T. Article 8, Barbara and Tom K. for Article 9, Tom T. and Nancy for Article 10, Barbara and Peter for Article 11, and Bill and Nancy for Article 12.
That's what I've got.
And what about 1?
By the presenter.
Elections.
By the,
Does that get announced or?
No.
no. Well, you'll talk about it.
Keno. Article
Keno.
13 will be moved by the petitioner.
Keno petitioners.
Who are they? I need the information. So somebody needs to send me who's driving that, because I need to talk to them.
We'll email it to you.
Okay.
Do you want to email that over to somebody, so we all have
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah,
you need
well,
the final copy. of
Can we
that.
get our schedule emailed out to us? Are you going to write that up for us?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll send you who's the petitioner for the Keno. I don't know the name. off
I
the
just
top
need
of
a
my head.
contact so I can talk to them.
We will.
Okay, is there anything else we need to be aware of for the deliberative session? Be there early, smiling?
Just runs the way it always does. Everybody's polite, respectful, and we
And-
just proceed.
As I announced this earlier, it's Wednesday, the 13th.
Yep.
With a snow date of Thursday.
Yep,
And you would call the snow date?
I would.
Okay, that morning or something?
in
or-
conjunction with others.
I know, but it would come officially from you.
Yes. Yep.
March 13th is the deliberative session.
Wednesday.
And, yeah, and the 14th is the
Snow day, yeah.
No snow allowed.
Okay.
She has them.
Can I move that to
I can go no
the-
matter what, so it doesn't matter to me, but I will talk to other people if we think there's an issue.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we don't have to worry about the issue of delaying elections or anything else.
And
We were smart enough to move ours to the next month.
to April, yeah. And you don't need any thing from us as far as equipment or setup or moderators or,
I have my own
Anything.
moderators, I have my checklist people, and the school is always very cooperative about setting up the room and ballot boxes, and I have voter checklist cards and secret ballots and all those things that we always have.
And
I
you
don't
and Fin-
expect an issue.
You and Finley will have to get together and who's good doing what where for the counselors being at the polls.
oh, but that's,
That's
Oh, I
a month
understand.
away, but
that's into the future.
I'm gonna hold you all accountable in that I need 2 of you at each poll.
Like that's new.
Right, that's no different, and
I'm wrong.
don't go
That
there.
doesn't matter.
Oh,
You
that
still
don't
don't-
matter?
you just
That
can't
doesn't
be
matter.
in the ballot counting area.
We'll deal with that next month. You guys
We're
have
glad to
always
have
been
you
very
running too, by
cooperative
the
and
way.
very helpful, and
Oh,
and
She
it's
was
always
hoping to
worked.
get out.
Is that a cotton veggies with? That's
No,
nice.
no, you guys have always been,
No,
you guys are on the hook for technically setting up the elections and making arrangements and doing all of that, but we'll work on that next month.
If you really want us to do that, we could do that. You wouldn't be happy with the results though, Kristen.
I don't have any problem. I can always say to the Secretary of State, talk to them.
fire them. Oh,
Yeah, you say that anyway?
I do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm on first name basis.
okay, are there any other questions or concerns or issues relative to the deliberative session on the 13th?
I don't think so.
I'm not expecting any issues. I mean, we've been running it the same way for
Many years.
nigh on 30 years. So,
I think we'll be fine.
actually 30 plus. But, yeah, we'll be fine. And the town, they know what to expect, and they always step up to the issue, so.
As somebody said, we played this rodeo before. so-
Yes, I've been to this rodeo before.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you very much.
Excellent.
Lost my agenda.
Here,
Not that I need one, but
well, my,
I think we're in the end of minutes at this
in the
point.
minutes.
So does anybody have any thoughts on February 12th minutes?
Nicely
You mean
typed.
February 14th?
February
Second.
12th is what I'm looking for.
Oh, I'm sorry. I turned it too quickly.
Was that a motion?
Sure,
On
I'd
your
like
part?
to move. Very well done.
Second.
There's no corrections.
Yeah, no corrections.
Especially for the 3 pages.
I had all of a short question about those minutes. In the introduction, it lists all the people that are here by their last name, except for the assistant town manager, finance director is listed as Paul McCallie as opposed to McCallie. Is there a particular reason, Paul, that your name gets added in, or?
I have no idea why she did that. I think it's copy and paste.
In the next one, it's not only the assistant town manager, but it's also the town manager that gets a first name call out.
I don't know why she does
Thought it was interesting. But I don't particularly care one way or the other, but I just noticed it and thought I'd comment. Any thoughts on the minutes? We had a motion to accept them as presented
And a second.
and a second. I didn't write down who did what. but
Nancy Harrington
Nancy
made the
and-
motion, Barbara Haley seconded.
Oh, no, it was Pete.
Pete, sorry.
Nancy and Peter. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
So that's 3 in favor, 0 against, and 2 abstaining, with Bill and Peter abstaining, which is sufficient to pass. Right?
Yep. Well done.
Right, okay. I can still add it. 9 o'clock at night.
It's confusing when you
Start doing that kind of stuff, yeah, okay. And now we have the minutes of February 14th.
Mr. Chairman, I move the February 14, 2019 Town Council meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved by Bill and seconded by Barbara. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
I had several, but go ahead.
Page 5, line 6.
Can you put your mic on, please? Thank you.
Yes, on page 5, line 6. MYA program / BISE?
Yeah,
Vice.
last name.
That's the name of the concession stand.
Oh, okay.
The field
Maybe that should be
stand.
capitalized in concession stand. By,
Well,
whatever. And down on line 45, by in large, shouldn't it be by and large? It's an and, not an in.
okay.
And that's, let me see. Over on page 10, line 28, each of the CRF's words, strike the S. And down on same paragraph, line 30, specific items that were designed by the voters, maybe I think it should be designated.
You are correct.
Thank you. Okay, page 11. Line 4, I think it is. Begins 6 months after the bond is let. Should it be set? Or
Let.
some other word? Is let the proper terminology there?
I think let is the right terminology. It's page 11, line 4, or 5, depending upon how you want to count. Line 4, sorry. I think it is, but
6 months after the bond is sold.
you could change it to that.
Sold.
That-
That was it for me, thank you.
Anybody else have comments? I had a couple. Starting with line 6, everywhere through here that it talks about Chairman Rothaus declared the public hearing closed at 7:47.
What page?
Well, page 6,
Okay.
line 24. There's a lot of these in here, so I'm just going to generally state it.
Okay.
It should say that he saw no one from the public interested in addressing the budget issues,
I think that's a good point.
or whatever. So that if we could add a comment, no one in the public was interested in addressing this issue before he closes the public hearing, because there's nothing in here about the public being appropriate, being a part of. And that occurs multiple times throughout here. Every time it says he declared the public hearing closed, there's no comment about whether the public commented or not.
No public comment?
No public comment was received, period.
You could say that, just something to show that we literally did ask them
Correct. No, I agree.
Agreed.
if they wanted to comment. Thank you. And that's multiple times through here. And then on page 11, at line 24, it says after the 10-year period, Merrimack will be the 13th lowest. And I believe Councilor Harrington added, maybe as an aside, that's assuming no increases in other towns
I believe I did.
over that period. And I think it's important that we say that they're not necessarily going to be 13th lowest. They could still be lower if other towns increase their rates during that 12-year
Assuming no
period.
other increases were built into other towns.
Yep.
That's correct.
Right. And I think that was the last one, but if you'll give me a second, there's a lot of pages here.
We were busy that night.
Well, we had to go through each and every one
Yeah.
of the warrants multiple times and
Yeah.
read all that stuff and everything. So I have no further corrections. Anybody else have anything to add? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote on the minutes as amended for February 14th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? That's 500. Which brings us to comments from the press or the public. Seeing none. Comments from council members.
I have nothing to say.
Which brings us to our final item on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion made by Bill, seconded by Peter. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, abstaining? We are adjourned. Please turn off your mics. Thank you. 500.